Hello, my name is Evan Freiberger, and we got another weather forecast for you. Got three areas mainly to watch up in the Northeast and the Great Lakes, down here by the Southeast, maybe for some drought relief. And we got another storm potentially coming up here for the Pacific Northwest. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoy this forecast. All right, coming over to the simulated winter weather radar here, you can see that we do have some winter weather out there, mainly for Canada. Some of it's making its way into the Minnesota region. Had some rain and showers earlier that has now moved off into Canada as well. And pushing this forward, you can see that a little bit of snow is going to be possible over there for Maine. But then after that happens, a little bit of rain comes in on the backside, and that will probably melt the snow. So not a whole lot of accumulation that's going to stick around for too long. A little bit of rain though with that storm. And then we have another system back here that's going to be moving in. Again, gonna be mainly scraping Canada, maybe just getting the northern parts of Minnesota and the UP of Michigan, maybe bringing a little bit of a wintry mess for a little bit over here in Vermont and New Hampshire. But as that moves off to the east, you can see that some rain falls in on the backside. A lot of that's gonna melt pretty quickly as well, and not gonna see too much of accumulation with that storm. But we will go over everything, like the amounts of the precipitation and everything that you need to know in just a second. Coming down to the southern plains, you can see that it's going to stay pretty dry from the 6th to the 7th here, then going into the 8th, still pretty dry out there, but a little system starts to approach from the Pacific Ocean there, and that's going to travel across Mexico into Texas, and eventually we'll tap into a little bit of instability. We've been watching the storm for a little bit, really hoping that it's going to bring some drought relief, but unfortunately, this one's really not going to do too much. As the models progressed, we have been seeing it kind of downtrend here, but definitely some rain for these areas on the 9th here at around 6 p.m. Going to be picking up going into Texas, into Arkansas, and also Louisiana, maybe even nosing into Tennessee, West Virginia, and Kentucky. But again, the amounts that this is going to bring, which we will go over in a little bit, is not going to be that much. But yeah, some drought relief is on the way. It's just not going to be enough to completely destroy the drought, unfortunately. And if we push this even further, it sticks around for a little bit, but then it just kind of moves off. Not a whole lot of heavy rain. It's going to be nice for some folks that haven't seen rain in a while. I know I haven't, but other than that, that's about all we can expect from this rain. And then coming up to the Pacific Northwest here, you can see that we still have some lingering rain and snow showers. Snow showers mainly still up into the higher elevations there, sticking around. And then we're going to have another storm that's going to push through at around the 9th at around 3 p.m. on the west coast here for Portland, Salem, Astoria, Olympia, all the way up into Seattle. Not a whole lot of cape with this storm, so I'm really not expecting a tornado risk. Maybe that will uptrend, maybe it'll downtrend as we get there, so we'll keep an eye on it. But that's on the 9th there, and then pushing this forward, that moves through, brings a little bit of additional rain and snowfall for the mountains, some gustier winds along the coast, but that's going to be pretty much it. Nothing you guys aren't used to. And then at the end of this model run, you can see that there's maybe another wave of rain coming in, but that's going to be mainly just for Washington up here. And this is going to be these storm systems that are going to be tracking across the United States consistently. That is going to continue to evac that warm air up into the United States, which we will also talk about in a little bit. Coming over to the estimated snowfall accumulations here across the northern part of the Great Lakes going into the Northeast, you can see that there is some chances of brief accumulations here, mainly over here in the UP of Michigan, where we're expecting potentially up to 5, 6, maybe even some isolated spots of 10 inches along the coast there with a little bit of that lake effect. Also, some accumulations that could stick around is going to be up here in northern Minnesota, where potentially up to 7 inches are going to be possible up there. And then moving on over to the Northeast, a lot of this is going to fall. It'll briefly accumulate, and then that rain will come in on the backside and probably melt it out. But there could still be some lingering snow, particularly up here in northern Maine, but over here in the mountains of New Hampshire and Vermont, potentially up to 2 to 3 inches. But again, we are expecting that to melt pretty quickly as not only the heat comes through, but also that rain. Coming over here to the Pacific Northwest, you can see that the mountainous snow is going to be a plentiful over here, potentially up to 2 to 3 feet possible on some of these mountains in Washington, going in Idaho, maybe 2, 3 feet there. Not expecting, really too much lower elevation accumulation out of this, mainly still in the mountains, because it is going to be a little bit warmer than usual out here in the Pacific Northwest. But yeah, other than that, not a whole lot going on in this region of the country. Now, coming back down here to the southern plains, we're going to be looking at the potential for the drought relief. Again, it's not too high. We're only talking about a couple of inches of rain here around Houston, also a couple inches of rain moving into Texas and Louisiana and Arkansas. We are monitoring, though, to see if these things can change. Again, we're a little bit far out here on the forecast, a couple of days away from this rain event. So things could change, hopefully for the better in terms of more rain. A lot of these areas need rain. We'll look at that drought map right after this, but potentially even an inch, maybe even nosing into the Tennessee area. But as we get around Nashville, it really starts to drop off in, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, and all the way up into South and North Carolina. Just not seeing a whole lot of drought relief. All right, now moving on to the main part of the forecast here, we are going to have some way above normal temperatures. Take what you typically feel on a November and then plus 20, 25, 30 degrees, especially over here in the northern part of the southeast and going into the Ohio Valley. But yeah, let's push this forward. So this is today. Look at that. I mean, 20, 24 degrees above normal there for Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, pushing this even further. It stays up there in the 10s and 20s above average in that region, maybe even nosing 19 degrees above average there in Kentucky. Pushing this through, we're going to have another wave of heat that's going to be coming through this area. Again, 25, 26, 27 degrees above normal, extending all the way from Indiana down into Texas there. And this is going to be on the 8th here of November, pushing this even further. I mean, still, those 23 to 27 degrees above average temperatures are going to stick around for a couple of days. So this is definitely going to be a fall heat wave here, way above normal, super anomalous heat coming into the United States. It's not going to be like summer heat. It is kind of feel like summer, though, the further north that you go, because your guys' temperatures up there in summer's around 70 to 80 degrees. And we're going to go over here in a second on just how hot it's actually going to be. But, pushing this even further, you see that heat sticks around. And then once we get into the 9th, going into the 10th, that heat really starts to die down. It kind of sticks around there for the southeast, going into, the Carolinas there. But for the most part, it's going to return back to average. And then as we get close to the end of this forecast, a little bit of an elevation there of heat in Nebraska, in the central plains there in Iowa and Missouri, and then pushing this all the way to the end. We're going to end the week here and going into the 11th, looking pretty average across the United States. So a pretty quick warm up, and then it's going to cool down to be about average. All right, coming over here to the temperatures, you can see as we push this forward, we're talking 70-degree temperatures up in the Ohio Valley, 80 to 75 in the southeast, 80s in the southern plains there, and then pushing this through to the next day, you can really see those 70s start to nose up into Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, going down in the southeast, starting to see those 80s pick up, 70s and 60s over there in Kentucky and the Ohio Valley there, and then pushing this all the way into the next day. Man, look, 80-degree temperatures, 70-degree temperatures, pushing all the way up into Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. That's super anomalous for this time of year. 70s and 80s all across the board here from Texas up into Kentucky there, and then pushing this into the next day here. You can see that those temperatures really start to cool down as we have this really subtle frontal boundary that's going to move in, but those 70s and 80s are still going to stick around for the southeast and the Carolinas, and then pushing this all the way through. You can see that heat's going to hang on down there in the southeast, but for the most of the country, it's going to be around average. So this is what average looks like, 50 degrees down into the 57s there into Texas, but pushing it back and then comparing it to the amount of heat that we're going to be seeing here on the 8th. This is going to be November 8th when this is going to happen. It's going to be hot. It's going to be hot compared to normal out there. So last but not least, we're going to be looking at the drought map here. Nothing has changed. We're still waiting for the latest update, but we are going to be getting around 2 to 3 inches over here in Texas, a little bit there in Louisiana and Arkansas. But as you can see, a lot of that rain is not even going to touch where we have the most serious droughts across the country. Down here in New Mexico and Arizona, not going to see a whole lot of relief there. Over here in Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, and Nebraska, not going to see a whole lot of relief there. Maybe some relief over here near New York and up here in Minnesota and northern Wisconsin, but not a whole lot of relief, unfortunately, for any of these areas. All right, well, that's going to be it for me. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this forecast. It really does help out the channel a lot, and I will see you guys on the next video.